Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum dan selamat sejahtera kepada semua yang hadir, yang menyertai forum kita pada petang ini, anjuran Secretariat Pengajaran dan Citra FKAB UPM, ataupun dalam English dia, Teaching and Liberal Studies, Fakulti Beda, Kebangsaan Malaysia. And we have here two esteemed panelists. One is from our own UKM, and the other one is invited from Universiti Putra Malaysia. So we have here Professor Madya Dr Nurfadhlina Mohd Sharef. She is the Timbalan Pengarah Inovasi, Deputy Director of the Pengajaran and Pembelajaran Center for Academic Development, CADe, Universiti Putra Malaysia. Then our UKM pensyarah lecturer is Saudara Wan Muhammad Aimran Wan Mohd Kamil. He's the lecturer at the Astronomy and Astrophysics at the Applied Physics Department, Jabatan Fizik Gunaan, Fakulti Sains dan Teknologi Universiti Kebangsaan Malaysia. Okay, just a little bit of ChatGPT introduction. It is an advanced artificial intelligence chatbot, free apps developed by a research and deployment company called OpenAI, and launched in November 2022, so just a few months ago, in San Francisco, USA. It came with a mission to ensure that artificial general intelligence, AI, systems that are generally smarter than humans benefits all of humanity. So it was built on top of OpenAI GPT-3 family of large language models. So what is GPT? Again, GPT means Generative Pre-trained Transformer. So it's built under a family of computer language models, and it allows you to have human-like conversations where it answers a person's question in written as well as in speech form, and even able to carry certain tasks such as composing emails, essays, and manuscript publications and coding. Anyways, without further ado, let me introduce, or let me welcome our pengarah Pusat Pembelajaran dan Pembangunan Kurikulum UKM, which is also our co-organizer for this forum, Prof. Ahmad Kamal Ariffin. Over to you, Prof.
Terima kasih Dr Manal Ismail selaku pengurusi dan juga moderator forum ini. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh dan salam sejahtera. Saya mengucapkan selamat datang kepada semua hadirin dalam talian ke forum, tajuknya Forum Kegunaan ChatGPT di IPT petang ini. Saya ingin mengucapkan terima kasih kepada kedua ahli panel. Yang pertama Dr. Profesor Madya Teknologi Dr Nurfadhlina Mohd Sharef dari Center of Academic Development UPM. Dr. Fadhlina, selamat datang. Terima kasih juga kerana menerima undangan ini. Seterusnya panel kedua Saudara Wan Muhammad Aimran, pensyarah astronomi dan astrofizik Jabatan Fizik Gunaan, Fakulti Sains dan Teknologi. Ini adalah satu bidang yang saya minat. Sebenarnya dari beliau saya dapat tahu ChatGPT ini dan memperkenalkan kepada saya. Selamat datang Saudara Aimran. Juga moderator pada hari ini, juga pengurusi forum ini Dr Manal. Kami percaya bahawa Dr Manal akan dapat mengendali dengan baik forum ini hingga akhir. Forum ini adalah anjuran seperti yang Dr Manal bagi tahu, urus dia pengajaran dan citra Fakulti Kejuruteraan UKM, Jabatan Kejuruteraan Elektrik, Elektronik dan Sistem, Pusat Pendidikan Kejuruteraan, unit ICT, dan juga kerjasama dengan Pusat Pengajaran dan Pembangunan Kurikulum UKM dan juga Pusat Komunikasi Korporat. Forum ini adalah untuk semua pensyarah, pelajar, staf dalam universiti dan juga masyarakat luar. Masyarakat luar, maknanya di luar universiti pun dipersilakan juga. Tujuan diadakan forum ini, saya yakin ia akan dapat membuka ruang diskusi dan meningkatkan kemahiran kita tentang teknologi, terutamanya penggunaan chatbot ini. Dalam era digital sekarang, ianya semakin popular dan banyak digunakan dalam bisnes, pendidikan, kesihatan dan banyak lagi. Jadi penting untuk kita memahami bagaimana chatbot ini, ChatGPT ini khususnya, bagaimana ia dapat digunakan secara efektif dan efisien dan akhirnya kita dapat menghayati agar meningkatkan produktiviti. Saya yakin dengan ahli panel yang akan berkongsi pengetahuan dan pengalaman mereka dalam forum hari ini. Jadi dalam dunia yang semakin maju, keupayaan untuk terus belajar dan menyesuaikan diri dalam perkembangan baru adalah penting. Forum seperti ini dapat memberi peluang kepada kita terus belajar dan mengambil manfaat dari pengetahuan dan pengalaman dari ahli panel para jemputan kita hari ini. Saya harap, harapan saya kita semua dapat mendapat manfaat yang besar dari forum ini. Terima kasih kepada ahli panel dan juga Secretariat yang anjurkan. Terima kasih juga kepada yang hadir. Akhir sekali, tidak kurang pentingnya, saya ingin maklumkan bahawa ucapan saya ini juga sebenarnya dibantu oleh ChatGPT. Sekian, terima kasih. Balik semula kepada Dr Manal.
Alright, thank you, Prof. Ahmad. Ariffin. So basically, this forum we will be conducting in English most of the time, but of course we allow for bilingual. Okay, so that's again because you can uphold the sovereignty of bahasa Melayu, bahasa Malaysia, bahasa kebangsaan kita. But also Dr Nurfadhlina and Saudara Wan Mohd Aimran, they also agree to present their findings and what have they already presented before, especially Associate Professor Dr Nurfadhlina. She has been conducting workshops and so on in University Putra Malaysia, so she has already vast knowledge on ChatGPT. And before we introduce them properly, I would allow some little bit of interactive moment. And here we let Dr. Ashrani, our colleague, to have a little bit of ChatGPT to introduce itself. So I hope all can see from the, from your own PC or laptop or mobile screen.
Hello, I am ChatGPT, a large language model developed by OpenAI, designed to generate human-like responses to natural language input. I have been trained on a vast amount of text data, which includes books, articles, and online content, in order to learn patterns and relationships between words and concepts. As a language model, I can be used for a wide range of natural language processing tasks, such as answering questions, summarizing text, translating languages, generating text, and much more. I use a deep learning algorithm called a transformer to understand the context and meaning of words and phrases, which allows me to generate high-quality responses to a wide range of queries. I am constantly learning and evolving, as my training data is regularly updated with new information, which helps me stay up to date with the latest developments in various fields. I'm happy to help answer your questions and provide information on a wide range of topics.
Okay, that's about it for now. Okay, so good introduction. Okay, by ChatGPT itself, or should we use pronoun itself? Yes, it can be anything. So let's just use it as it. Okay, pronoun. All right. Okay, again, by January 2023, after its inception in November 2022, it has reached, the app itself, it has reached 100 million users. That was in January 2023. So now it's already in March. So I'm sure that the number has doubled or tripled and more, okay? And it became the fastest growing consumer application to date. Okay, it has since gained massive tractions among big players and also competitors alike, such as Google and Microsoft. And as with any AI online chatbot apps, its usage has its own pros and cons, weaknesses and advantages and limitations. And then we let our panelists to share, elaborate, and perhaps dissect further on this, right? Okay, so here we go. Okay, we're going to introduce our panelists. Our first panelist is Associate Professor Dr Nurfadhlina Mohd Sharef. Okay, Dr. Nurfadhlina, how are you? I hope you're okay. Okay, all right. Okay, she's an associate professor at the Faculty of Computer Science and Information Technology, University Putra, Malaysia. She is also currently the Deputy Director at the Center for Academic Development and Leadership Excellence, CADe Lead, and in charge of the Innovation in Teaching and Learning for UPM. Okay, she is one of the members of Malaysia Council for Public University Head of E-Learning, MEI PTA, and Dr. Nurfadhlina also completed her Bachelor Studies in System Science and Management from UPM, so she's an UPM alumni. Her Master's was on Software Engineering from UPM, and then she obtained her PhD degree on Intelligent Systems from University of Bristol, UK. Her research areas are artificial intelligence, data science, and e-learning. Among her past research is chatbot and question answering. She has also published and led various projects in education, health, biodiversity, and agriculture. Okay, Dr. Nurfadhlina. Okay. So, and anyways, she has also presented workshops in early February and also a guide, okay, for UPM for the ChatGPT self-usage as a guide for among lecturers and students, basically for the teaching and learning. And they have been conducting under their innovative TNL, okay? Right, so first of all, okay, so we want to ask her, okay, on the aspect on what is basically GPT and the recent development on the usage. Over to you.
Thank you very much. Assalamualaikum. Can you hear me?
Yes.
All right, great. Can I have the permission to share my screen, please? Thank you. Oops. Okay, this one. Hopefully you can see my screen. This is a slide. Can anyone just respond to me? Can you see my slide?
Yes, yes, we can. Thank you.
All right, great. Thank you very much. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Salam Madani, and also good afternoon to everyone. Thank you very much for spending time in this session. I would like to also extend my appreciation to UKM, the Faculty of Engineering, as well as the Pusat Kurikulum, Pusat Pengajaran dan Pembangunan Kurikulum dan Pusat Komunikasi Korporat UKM, serta JKIS, Unit ICT dan P3K, serta Urus Setia PNC, Fakulti Kejuruteraan dan Alam Bina UKM for the opportunity to spend time with you today to have an academic discourse about ChatGPT. Thank you very much also to our lovely host, MC today, Dr. Manal, for the kind introduction. I'm going to share a bit about how ChatGPT can be used and what is the level of usage currently of ChatGPT at higher learning institution. Maybe now we are somehow this is out of line. Let me edit this a bit so you can get the benefit from what I have prepared for you. Maybe it is not too much, I think, for us to say. I don't think this is an overstatement anymore. We now live in a GPT era. And now, among the vocabularies that many of us know nowadays, not just ChatGPT, we now know about DALI, we now know about BARD, if not other tools that depends on the content type that has been highlighted. So in this ChatGPT era or the GPT era, people look into having tools to be able to increase their productivity for many purposes, because the allure of AI powered tools can help indeed individuals to maximize their understanding of any subject, not just academic subjects, because now we want to be able to rely to a tool to get us a guide on how to start something, just to spark an idea. We want to have a right content. We want to have something that provide us at the right time for us, not needing us to depend on another individuals that maybe is limited in terms of time constraint. Now, people use these GPT tools to be able to enrich information discovery experience. Before this, if you can recall, at the time that Google or search engine, if you can still remember, like cause I'm an UPM alumni, by the way, I could still remember my lecturer. I think it was Prof Suhana at the time. Teaching us about Lycos, this search engine, and also Yahoo. We had to go through this search engine one by one and having to summarize. But this summarization process teaches on how to dissect information, how to filter information, trying to integrate information. Nowadays, we use AI tools to be able to get a summarization of information, and we use it to give us brief information. It is also able to answer questions, help us to be more productive in writing, composing and editing, and we can say that this tool increase our productivity. As explained by Dr. Manal just now, UPM has conducted a webinar on 2nd February 2023, which was aired because there was a concern at the university level regarding this ChatGPT, and how do we prepare the educators and the students for it. In that webinar, which I have presented, we have conducted a Mentimeter survey to look at how people see ChatGPT. You can see on the bottom left here on how people rank ChatGPT usage for themselves. Many have used ChatGPT for teaching preparation, followed by research ideas, as a writing assistance, and then for content generation. In terms of the advantage versus the concerns by educators, we can see that if we were to count by each of the points, we can see that the concerns weigh more than the advantage. So hopefully we can discuss further in this session. Let us look at the advantage. People like to use it because it helps for future research ideas generation, assisting them to get information, reducing time searching, to be able to write content and present the research ideas. And this is more interesting, I think, to make education more interactive. So let's hopefully we can discuss about what this could mean in terms of the student's perspective. How education can be made more interactive with this ChatGPT. Would it be because they feel that this ChatGPT is a tutor, an assistant for them to be able to refer to it without having to wait for some specific schedule to see their lecturer? And this also indicates that they should have the competency and courage to be able to speak to their lecturers. Would this be faded because of having this ChatGPT? And this has been exactly reflected in the concerns by the educators. It could be also that this ChatGPT can discourage critical thinking. Maybe it will worsen the plagiarism issue that has long decaying, that has long clouded the mind of people in academics area, and it may be also a shortcut to assignments. Students get lazy of reading, they don't want to be creative anymore. There is also concern that maybe this is a displacement of manpower, that people will be replaced because we can depend on this technology, and because that student may use the output from this ChatGPT, probably that they would exactly just copy the same. Maybe they would do it on their own. It is their each of them put an effort to use this ChatGPT as a teaching and learning tool, but they will just copy, and the educator, when they see it, they will assume that this is plagiarism, and the student don't do it themselves. So these are the advantage and concerns. I start with this so that we can look more into possible discussions afterwards. In the webinar, we have also looked at the guide for educators. As the baseline, I think it's very important for us to start by having some general understanding of what artificial intelligence and how it can be used in education. So if you look at this guide, this is basically more for AI in education and not necessarily specifically just for ChatGPT for education. AI can generally be used to personalize learning experiences. Why? Similar, if we take ChatGPT as an example, this kind of tool will be able to address specific needs of each student. So this personalization experience is very valuable to be able to retain the student motivation and keep engaging, and hopefully now that they become more confident, they have some basic of what to discuss further, they can take this to discuss with their lecturer and also with their peers. AI can also be used to assist with the grading and providing feedback and create interactive and immersive learning environments, but people have to be aware of the potential ethical implications. Could be algorithm bias, could be user privacy, and therefore educators need to stay up to date. Since the time that we had the webinar, I think people started to also look into how to detect and how to look, how to become better at fact checking, and how to detect that the students have been using ChatGPT or not. So in this slide, I try to share that there are at least 3 applications that can be used to detect if it is written by ChatGPT or not. But if you look closely at each of these figures, we can see that the output of each of this tool is not the same. I used the example on the top left. I used ChatGPT to just give me something about hybrid learning. I was too lazy at that time, just put one word and see what's the outcome. And then I copy back the output into each of these tools. And this tool, if you see the first one, just say that 8% likely. This is from GPT-3 or ChatGPT. And another tool says that this is 99% human generated content, and 100% says that your text has been most likely written by an AI model. So this again gives another, we can look at it as an opportunity for us to study and understand AI further. What caused this to not be able to be detected? Now, in this example, the example that I use is NLP, is in a form of text. These AI tools may use a combination of natural language processing algorithms with machine learning algorithms for text pattern detection. In the AI algorithm, there are many possibilities for a tool to be able to behave according to the data that it is being trained for. And as shown also by these tools, there are still unsolved concern on how to be able to detect ChatGPT. But again, whether it's really important to detect ChatGPT, knowing that there are possibilities that these tools will evolve from time to time and could be also very rapidly. There is already a prediction that GPT-4 will be released soon. If you look in this example, we can see that this technique is something called interactive machine learning. This example, if we let us look at the first example, the user enters a picture of rabbit and it asks the machine, what's in this picture? Then the machine will say that this looks like a duck. That's not a duck actually. Then what's it? Looks more like a bunny. Wait, so then it says why? Because it has bunny ears. Sorry, so the blue is actually from the machine and red from the human. So this kind of interactivity would be the evolution of where machine learning is currently going. And coincidentally, this is also one of my current research works, and I've got a grant looking at it. On the right
Thank
side,
you,
you can... Yes?
Right.
Have I finished 10 minutes?
Yes, 10 minutes finished.
Really?
So we're going to,
Okay, then.
yes, it's all right. So we can just hold it for the next presentation. Let's allow for the second panelist. Okay.
Sure.
Mr. Wan Imran, are you ready?
Can I see? Oh, I think I need to listen.
Okay, so our second panelist, Mr. Aimran Wan Mohd Kamil. Okay, he's a lecturer at the Department of Applied Physics, Faculty of Science and Technology, UPM, where he teaches courses on astronomy, modern physics, experimental physics, ethics in science and technology, and philosophy of science. Okay, so he obtained bachelor degrees in physics from Imperial College London and earned his master's degree in astrophysics from University College London. All right, so he occasionally researches and also outreach projects, okay, circling around the astronomical observatory at Pusat Permata Pintar Negara, UKM, since inception in 2013, and is also instrumental for formulating, developing, and conducting several enrichment courses in physics and astronomy intended for gifted and talented students. And he's also the current leader for the International Physics Olympiad, PHO, and has been actively training secondary and pre-university students for the National Physics Olympiad since 2010, right? So on his part, okay, our question would be to understand the ethics and the usage of ChatGPT. Okay, Mr. Wan Imran, okay, it's your chance to explain to us, please. Okay.
Okay, thank you very much, Dr. Manal. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Good afternoon to everyone. Thank you to CADe and ICT Unit for inviting me to the panelist. I will share my screen out. All right. So I think I have 10 minutes, so I'll try to go through the main points. In the first part, we'll talk a bit about the ethical issues concerning ChatGPT. At the end of this, we want to know where to draw the line between the moral and immoral usage of ChatGPT. So at the end of the day, we want to know where to draw the line. What do we consider to be people? So I think as scientists and engineers, we are not alien to ethical issues. I think any discovery of technology invention will have its pros and cons. But I think when we talk about how man is technology, I think it's not so much that the machine itself is dangerous, but what we make of the machine. Quotation by number email is a father of cybernetics. So from the very beginning, I think from the people involved in cybernetics, they are aware of how the technology can be used and therefore try to consider certain limits. So a bit on ethics. Ethics is about the morality of our actions, what makes a particular action good or bad. Ultimately, it is about setting limits, what we can and cannot do. Those limits are based on what we value. If we value life, then we would set a limit on murdering someone. If we value knowledge, then we would set limit on the use of that knowledge. Ethics aim to maximize what is beneficial, to minimize the harm, in order for us to discuss there are moral dilemmas, and this is what makes ethics interesting. For instance, Prof, doing the right thing for the wrong reason. Is it wrong or right? So this is an example of a moral dilemma. And ChatGPT uses several moral dilemmas because different groups of people can use ChatGPT to different ends, and it is not quite clear whether this outcomes harmonize with each other. A simple example, let's say a student whose first language is not English might use ChatGPT to improve his or her academic writing. So as far as that student is concerned, that ChatGPT is beneficial to him or to her. Right? But another student may equally use ChatGPT to write an abstract or presentation or write an essay to be submitted as an assignment. So as far as the second student is concerned, ChatGPT is not used properly. So you have the same technology, ChatGPT, depending on how it is used.
Excuse me, Dr. Imran. I'm looking at the chat. We would really love to hear your voice clearer if possible. I
Okay.
trust that the points are very valuable. Probably if you put your mic closer to you, would that be better? Or do you want to use any audio aid?
My microphone from the video camera. So
Or if you're using a laptop, can you put it clearer? At least then the sound is flat. I mean the quality is not really, now macam ada gelombang.
Yes, I agree. It's not very sharp.
is it better now or still what do you call it?
Imran, you can switch off your camera if you want to. Maybe perhaps it will accelerate your connection.
See.
Okay.
Let's see. Change microphone. Let's see. Speaker.
Okay, better.
Real time. Is it better now? Hang on.
Yes, better.
Is it clearer now?
Yes, clearer, yeah.
Much clearer.
Yeah,
Thank
okay.
you.
So I think because there's speaker and there's mics and whatnot, right? So, where was I? Okay, right. So the thing about ethics is that, the same technology can be used to different ends by different people. So then the issue becomes how do we negotiate between these two different ends. So hence you have moral dilemmas, right? Next, let's see. I think Dr. Nurfadhlina has covered this, so I think I will go very briefly through this. I think the point about ChatGPT, if you want to start thinking about how to use it properly, is to have a clear idea of what it does, its purpose, right? And the purpose of ChatGPT is to produce human-like textual output. Right? And it is also useful to know how it achieves its purpose. It does so by predicting, the most likely element in a string of elements, and this can be words or numbers or symbols. And it is trained on the data that is fed to it, like Dr. Nurfadhlina said, right? Next, I'm going to share a video in the chat. So I think if all of you can watch it for a while, it is a very interesting video because it shows how a student uses ChatGPT. It's a very short video, I think it's less than 30 seconds. But in that particular video, what you'll see is that you have a student who is answering a multiple choice question, a multiple choice test. What he did was to copy the question and also the options onto ChatGPT, and then ChatGPT will generate the answer for each of the questions, right? I think I shared this video because I think this is the worst case scenario of students using ChatGPT in their assessment, i.e. this is what we fear the most, for students to simply
Yes, go ahead.
questions we gave them, put it into ChatGPT, and then ChatGPT spits out something and and then the student will just submit it as their own work, right? And it is useful in this particular case to think about what makes a student work unethical. Why is it considered unethical? And to also think about whether the teacher who sets the test is at fault as well, right? Why would, if the test can be so easily hacked, then what was the purpose of the test in the first place, right? Was the test conducted properly, appropriately or not, right? And if the student is caught cheating, then what grades do the students deserve, right? And finally, why did the students cheat? I think that is a question that we need to ponder as well, right? So let's see, move on to the next slide, right? So two insights from this video. They can be bad assessments as well as bad students, right? So to my mind, when students, if student uses ChatGPT to bypass, answering questions, whatnot, it might not be the case. It might not always be the case that the students are morally bad. It might be also the case that the assessments are poorly designed, right? So the assessment design is just as important as assessment integrity. I mean, if we as educators, we design the assessment poorly, then I think we should shoulder some of the blame if students can sort of hack the assessments as well, or not answer, or not do it properly, right? This is another thing that I think, because I'm short for time, I think I wouldn't do it live. But then I tried to do this last Friday, I think, because my talk is about the ethics of using ChatGPT. So I just typed this prompt into ChatGPT, draft an outline for 1 hour talk titled "The Ethics of Using ChatGPT," and it gave me a list of talking points, right? I think the ethics of using ChatGPT arises with what do we use, or how do we use that response? Right? Do we just take it 100% and submit it as our own work, or do we then use the response as a starting point to to edit, to review, and then to improve upon it, right? Right. So the ethical use of ChatGPT hinges on what we choose to do with the output we receive. And there is a spectrum of possible scenarios ranging from, letting ChatGPT to do everything and we do nothing, or, the students do everything and the ChatGPT doesn't do anything, right? So this is a very nice diagram. I took this from the website Ditch That Textbook by Matt Miller. As you can see, he lists several scenarios, several possibilities in which a student can use ChatGPT in completing their assignments. And what I would like to do is for us to go through, maybe not each of the scenarios, but some of them, and to ask ourselves what makes a particular scenario cheating or not cheating, right? So we'll start with this. This is simplest case, right? A student writes a prompt, ChatGPT generates a response, and then the student then submits it to the teacher, right? I think for most of us, we will consider this to be cheating, right? But ChatGPT is not really new in that sense. Our students have been have had access to to other online platforms that can, that can give them solutions which they can then submit to the lecturer, or the student can copy from a sympathetic friend and then, submit to the teacher. So in that sense, this is not really, this is not really different from traditional cheating, right? The second scenario is this. The student writes a prompt, ChatGPT generates a response, and then the student reads the response, checks it, edits it, and then only the student submits to the teacher. So the student doesn't the student edits the response, right? There is some input by the student before
thank you, Mr. Imran. Okay, so
to the teacher.
For the first 10 minutes of the session.
This is slightly different from using Google search, because for if you're using Google search, then you need to write a keyword, and then you need to go through the search results, and then you need to write the sentence and that kind of thing. So in this instance, ChatGPT is slightly better than Google search in the sense that the student doesn't have to think about writing the sentences, but still the opportunity for cheating is still there. The third scenario is this. The student writes a prompt, generates several responses, and then the student sort of mix and match the different responses into a single response, right? In this case, the student have more input into the outcome of the assignment, right? But again, this is not very different from the student asking for advice from several of his friends, and then writing the work and submitting it to the teacher, right? The next scenario is this. Instead of writing a prompt, the student writes several writes an outline of main ideas, and then gives it to ChatGPT. ChatGPT generates a draft of text. The student then reads it, checks it, and edits it, and then only submits to the teacher. Now, this is something that only ChatGPT can do, and Google search cannot do. Right? So this is where ChatGPT is quite revolutionary compared to the previous search engines. Right? The next scenario is this: the student writes the main ideas, gives the main points. ChatGPT generates a draft, and then the student reads and checks, and then the student submits the draft to ChatGPT again. To revise maybe the writing and the language, and then the student improves upon the writing and the language based on the feedback given by ChatGPT, and only then submits the teacher. Right? So the loop here is much more involved compared to the previous case, right? And this is the last scenario. The last scenario is the student asks a question to ChatGPT. ChatGPT generates answers. And then based on those answers, the student will write a draft, submits the draft to ChatGPT, gets the feedback, utilize the feedback, and then submits to the teacher, right? So these are different scenarios in which the student can use ChatGPT when completing his or her assignment. And we have to ask ourselves whether each of these cases are considered to be cheating or not. I think that is the main point, right? So in what way ChatGPT poses a unique challenge compared to previous disruptive education technologies? As far as cheating is concerned, we already have existing safeguards in place to detect cheating. Do we fully utilize them, right? And I think when we talk about cheating among students, we have to understand that we cannot engineer our way out of student cheating, in a sense that we cannot dream up a perfect system which is 100% cheat proof, or which cannot be game. I think cheating is because it's a moral problem, so ultimately the solution must be moral as well. It cannot be technological. Technology can only help so far, right? Right, so let's see. I think as far as cheating is concerned, right, I think this is let's see, this is the frame. Hang on.
No, Mr. Wan Imran, we have to stop you.
Hang on. Let's see, cancel. Am I still, hang on, because I've lost.
Already past your time. We need you to stop.
Hang on, right.
Yeah, so we have to
So
annotate
let me
your.
just, I think my audio is, hang on, sorry.
Okay, sorry about that.
Okay, sorry, no, sorry.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you, Bob.
Okay.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. Okay. All right. Okay, so now that Mr. Wan Imran is really on year 5 now, so I'm sure that Dr. Fadlina wants to, get on with her exciting, what do we say, not rebuttal, but her part of her explanation or a chance to now do more. Okay, where we stopped just now. So that we'll give them each 15 minutes now. Okay, Dr. Fadlina. So our general question for both of you would be, okay, will or would ChatGPT be substituting a lecturer? So on Dr. Fadlina, if you want to discuss further what you have left before, and you can also further elaborate on the practical aspect or the technical aspect, if you may.
Thank you very much. Firstly, I would like to respond to the sharing by Dr. Wan Mohd Imran. I was totally immersed by the situations that you have shared because I think that is really detailed and very important for us to consider the possible learning situations and what kind of learning experience would we design for the learners. And I really like the last part that you highlight moral, what was the sentence? Moral problem should be addressed by moral. What was that
Moral
beautiful
value.
sentence again?
Moral
I think
value.
it was what we cannot engineer our way out of the cheating problem. I think, yeah.
Yes, but
Against
there was
plagiarism.
something
So
related
sorry
to
about
the moral
the
line.
audio. I think having two speakers and sorry, it's
No problem. For me, I really enjoy it. Can I have the sharing permission again, please?
Yes, go ahead. 15 minutes for you, Dr. Fadlina.
Wow, this is like a sprint or whatever.
Because we've already given a lot of time for Mr. Aimran just now.
I was looking up on this fraud of triangle. I will keep it there, so afterwards I can read on it. It's this one. So the question just now was regarding whether ChatGPT would change would substitute the educators, right? So to respond to that, let me swap a bit this slide to fit to the context. Let us try to take a different tact. I'm not an expert in moral ethics, although there is one chapter that I teach in research methodology regarding to ethics. But let us look at this. Generally, when we have any technology or any new things, there are always risks around.
yeah.
So in the perspective of space, of safe and responsible use of AI in education, as well as of the emergence of human in the loop machine learning or interactive machine learning, let us try to look at this context. Technology is a facilitator for learning. Educators' role still, educators are relevant to be able to lead in designing engaging learning experience. So what does this mean and how to do it? Let us look at the next line here. I took from somewhere and just spin it a bit. Therefore, there should be a synergetic collaboration between multiple entities. There should be learner, instructor, information, and technology in the system to be, which is very essential to ensure the learner's augmented intelligence. Hopefully, my message earlier wouldn't be taken wrongly. In the context of interactive machine learning, we are teaching the machine. But in the context of using AI for education, we use AI as a tool, similar like how we use Word, and in Word we have Quillbot, we have Grammarly, we use Turnitin. Those are all AI actually, although they are not generative AI. We have been relying, my point is that we have been relying on AI for some times, but maybe we didn't realize that it is an AI. But again, our job as an educator is to maintain the talaqi, to be able so that we want to develop the students. The learning outcome is learning outcome of the students. What do we want the students, what competency we want them to achieve? Yet, we know that having this AI in education would open for new risks that has been unforeseen. For example, could be there is cheating, like the example just now. What is the difference between cheating and plagiarism and using tool to make ourselves better? Similar like how we use the calculator. Similar like we use the phone to search or just go to search engine and use. So then how about honesty? Do we really want to let the student to really specify at which scenario did so do we really want the student to tell that I use ChatGPT and then I refine? Do we really want to go that tiny detail? How about truthfulness? How about the recency of information? One thing very important regarding the possibility of misinformation in the area of text mining, the recency of information, how the agent or software actually makes use of the information that they learn. They actually crawl along the web or even use all the text that's given to them. Now imagine that there are several facts. For the machine, sometimes their information is not accurate because they wrongly process, or because the information that is released is not really recent, or there are some wrong information in the original source. My point is that using AI does not necessarily produce cheaters. It is actually in the moral problem of that human not knowing how to detect, process, and secure the integrity of privacy, of accurate information. And these are the people who would amplify the misleading information, and maybe they purposely manipulate that information. So this is where we need to maintain the humanism in AI, the humanity in AI, because the human still needs to play their role. So now how to do it properly? Because actually the machine learning techniques behind generative AI have evolved over the past decade. So this is not new. In this slide, I try to share with you, I got this from a journal paper. There are three paradigms on how AI can be used in education. It is either AI directed, AI supported, or AI empowered. In AI directed, learner as recipient. So this relates to the earlier work on intelligent tutoring system, which FTSM has this. At least Prof. Sharul have this work before. Then ChatGPT also can be used. So we can design learning using ChatGPT towards AI directed. We can also design the learning process to be AI supported, where learners can be collaborators. Imagine a group of students, they use any AI apps to be able to discuss together, to solve some problems. So it is the job of an educator to design this authentic learning environment. So you just imagine, this is why the assessment methods need to change. Our assignments, the way the rubrics goes, needs to be refined. Probably this is actually a blessing in disguise for us to empower the 3C, or some people call 5C, the critical thinking, the communication, and the collaboration. Go back to this. Maybe this is actually a blessing in disguise, so that we can change to use AI to empower the learner, so learner can be a leader. So these are new challenges for us educators to be able to redesign, to adapt our lessons so our students will be able to benefit from AI. So I have some suggestions to the students. For the students, the biggest warning should be that the facts from the ChatGPT cannot be taken as is. And students or anyone that use this tool, or even when we are reading some portion of text from somewhere or whatever, or even images or even videos, we have to have this critical thinking, trying to critically consider whether that piece of text or whether that piece of advice is something reliable. Is it accurate? Can we take it? This is especially because ChatGPT has been known to deliver inaccurate information. That is why students should have fact-checking competency. So we as educators, we need to facilitate for this skill to be groomed, because we can only assume that more and more tools will be developed, and we as an educator also need to get a sense of whether it is AI generated or not. Is our student now turning to be AI, or are we actually teaching AI but not our students? So these are the possible issues for us to think. According to UNESCO, and if you're interested, you can look at OECD and also European Union. They have released several guides for AI. This one by the UNESCO, it says that the world's citizens need to understand what the impact of AI might be, what it can and cannot do, when it is useful, when its use should be questioned, and how it might be steered for the public good. Because we want to have a technology that can help civilization in a safe and responsible manner. How to do this? This requires everyone to achieve this AI literacy competency, and this should cover knowledge, understanding, skills, and value orientation. So this term, value orientation, would also relate to the moral ethics, integrity, as shared by Cikwan Aimran just now. So the definition of AI literacy, this comprises both data literacy, or ability to understand how the AI collects, cleans, manipulates, and analyzes data, as well as on the algorithms, where and how it finds patterns and connections, which might be used for human-machine interactions, because we now live in a world with machine. I had a project earlier that we published this technology playbook for future learning ecosystems. By the way, when this guide by UNESCO was released, ChatGPT is not really as popular as how it is now. So this sentence is a general sentence as an advisory for everybody to consider upskilling themselves in AI. In these slides, I try to share about how do we combine people and machines to create AI. This is because the best of human intelligence combined with the best of machine intelligence can create a better world, but make sure that we are not replaced by the machine slowly. So to answer to the question whether it would relate, it would substitute or not the educator, I think it is actually a call for action. This is the time for us to redefine our role, to upskill ourselves, and to work together like how we are doing today. Through this academic discourse, we can look at also ethics guide, and it also opens for many potential adoption study. For example, to investigate the user experience, to study through lenses of educational transformation, response quality, usefulness, personality, and emotion can also be on the ethics. And because we now really value the prompt crafting function that AI has, and I'm not sure how long I have, But my next sentence would be, using AI does not necessarily result to producing
1 minute
cheaters.
left. We have
5
1 minute
minutes
left.
left?
1
5
minute.
minutes left. Okay, thank you.
One.
Again?
1 minute.
1. So by then, I would just stop and wait for the next round maybe. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much, Dr. Fadhlina. Okay, same question. Okay, any substitution? Okay, ChatGPT as substituting the lecturer's job or functions, and perhaps Mr. Wan Imran, if you want to discuss in the aspects of the philosophy and also continue with the ethics. Okay, go on with your discussion, Mr. Wan Imran.
Okay, thank you. Let's see.
We have 15 minutes, yeah?
Okay, 15 minutes. Hang on. I think I can share the screen. Hang on. Okay, right. All right. Why are there so many? Right. There's one phrase which Dr. Fadhlina used, which I really like. She said that perhaps ChatGPT is a blessing in disguise. And I really like that phrase because when we look back at our experience as educators for the past, 2 years, 3 years, we have gone through a pandemic which forced us to change the way we teach and the way our students learn. And then after the pandemic, we have ChatGPT, we have generative AI. So it is a train of disruptions to the way we teach and the way our students learn. So perhaps ChatGPT, the arrival of ChatGPT is a second chance for us to learn, make amends, or improve the things that we missed out during the pandemic. Right? So there is an interesting New York Times article by Noam Chomsky on ChatGPT. I think it was last week. Because ChatGPT is a language model, Chomsky is a philosopher of language. So I think his input into discussion is very useful as well. He said that ChatGPT is nowhere near the human ability to speak. But I will expand a bit on what Dr. Fadhlina has mentioned about whether ChatGPT can substitute human educators. The first thing is that I think we should make a distinction between teaching and learning. Right? Teaching is what the teacher does, and learning is what the student does. And if we are lucky, sometimes what we teach is what the students will learn. Sometimes that if you are really lucky, then there is a concordance between the two. But then sometimes we can have the case where the teacher is teaching but the student is not learning, right? Or the student is learning and then it's not learning what the teacher is teaching, right? So, but I think we should make a distinction between teaching and learning. So let's say to answer the question whether ChatGPT can substitute educators, let's take a simple example. We say that, well, ChatGPT can provide feedback to students, right? So the student submits a draft to ChatGPT, ChatGPT generates feedback, and then the student utilizes the feedback, right? So in this particular instance, ChatGPT is a substitute for the teacher, right? The question is, can a human educator be completely excluded from this loop? Right? Can the student just have a dialogue with ChatGPT and that's it, without any intervention from the teacher? I think we have to ask ourselves several questions. The first thing is that when ChatGPT generates feedback, what does ChatGPT understand about the draft, right? Which criteria does it use to generate that feedback, and where does the criteria originate from, right? And I think most of these things still require human educators, because you need an educator to evaluate. Because when we as educators, when we evaluate a piece of writing, we are not just looking at the superficial, the arrangement of words or the arrangement of paragraphs. We are evaluating the meaning behind the text, right? And then the accuracy of the meaning, and then the validity of the meanings, right? The criteria, and then as educators, we know how to match criteria to particular piece of writing, right? If you're writing a lab report, then the criteria for assessment will be different if you're writing a thesis, for instance, right? And then usually it is the educators which will develop the criteria. It is educators, if the educators will be the ones who develop the marking scheme or the rubric, right? So for these purposes, I think human educators or teachers are still required in this loop, right? And what can happen is that, and I think Dr. Nurfadhlina has mentioned this, so ChatGPT can act potentially as a teaching assistant, right? Whereby the student can submit the draft to the ChatGPT, and ChatGPT generate feedback, and then after going through the cycle several times, only then submits the work to the teacher. But I think we must understand, because ChatGPT, is trained on the data that's fed to it, so we must make sure before we can use ChatGPT as a teaching assistant, then we as educators must train, must train ChatGPT to be a teaching assistant before we can let it loose upon our students, right? And then for each, and then if you want to think further, then we can think of other tasks that students can use ChatGPT for, and we have to ask ourselves whether the use of ChatGPT helps or hinders student learning, and whether it enhances or demote our role as teachers, right? I think what we want eventually is this virtuous loop, right? We want the student to submit a prompt to ChatGPT, respond, get the feedback, right? And then go through this process again and again until the student is confident that his or her piece of writing is good enough to be submitted. She submits it to the teacher. The teacher gives feedback and then the student makes revision, and then the teacher gives a grade, and then we want the grades given by the teacher to reflect student mastery, right? And I think ChatGPT can help this by engaging the student in what is called productive struggle, right? So I think this is the loop on the right is what we are aiming for, right? What we don't want is for students to simply submit the prompt and then give a prompt, submits the work, and then the teacher unknowingly gives grades that does not reflect student mastery, right? ChatGPT is a black box, so as usual, trash in and trash out, right? What data is used to train it, right? So this is the issue of accuracy that Dr. Nurfadhlina has mentioned. And then there's also issue of integrity and fairness. I don't think we should deprive our students from learning values and skills that they will need later as adults. I mean, if they are going to work in a world where ChatGPT or AI is something common, then I don't think we should shield them from that. I think that will leave them especially vulnerable when they go to work later, right? So can ChatGPT substitute human educators? No. If I'm cynical, I would say I would give the reason because without us, then how can we prevent our students from cheating, right? A much more optimistic answer would be to say I think ChatGPT cannot substitute human educators because without us, then how can we ensure that our students are properly guided when they are using ChatGPT, right? So the issue is about balancing the risk for cheating versus the opportunities for feedback. So I think I'll stop there.
Right, so Mr. Wan Imran, so you stopped earlier. So now we are going to again open for both panels, okay, for both panelists. And this time, okay, it will be regarding the impact of the usage of ChatGPT in the TNL, the teaching and learning. So if either one of you can start, okay, now is the time for another half an hour, okay, for any of you to actually raise or discuss, Okay, you are welcome to do so. Who's going to start on this?
What was the question again?
The question is, all right, the impact of the usage.
Impact
Okay,
of
so we have
usage.
discussed on the aspect on the philosophical and also the technical aspect. So now we want to see the impact, meaning that it's just continuation of what Dr. Fadhlina and Mr. Wan have discussed earlier, okay, or just now. Okay, so now we're just going to continue. For example, if I give you a starter, okay, ChatGPT can write introduction and abstract sections of scientific articles. This is what I found. Okay, and this one actually raises the ethical questions, because nowadays, and it's actually happening right as we speak, that a few, especially in the US, some students are already putting ChatGPT as a co-author of their report, lab report, research, their final year research project, and so on. So what do you see or foresee the impact of this usage? Okay, so if you want, if Mr. Wan wants to start first, because you're talking about ethical just now, and then perhaps Dr. Fadhlina, if you want to continue or interject, we're making this half an hour will be a lively one, right? So, okay.
Right. I think
lively since beginning.
Okay, I'll start the ball rolling, and then Dr. Fadhlina can interject. Right. Let me just put this full screen. When we talk about the impact of ChatGPT, I'm always reminded by this quotation by Douglas Adams. He talks about the relationship, our relationship with technology. He said, if anything that is in the world when you're born is normal, I mean, if the technology is there already when you're born, then you would think it is normal and it's part of the way the natural way the world works. Anything that's invented between when you're 15 and 35 is new and exciting and revolutionary, and you can probably get a career in it. Anything invented after you are 35 is against the natural order of things. I think the point here...
Sorry, Mr. Wan you can also include if there's any long-term impact as well.
Okay, right. I think...
We're talking about on the language part as a tool, yeah.
Right. The point here is that ChatGPT will impact different generations differently, right? Our experience with ChatGPT might be different from the experience that our children, our students may have with ChatGPT. So I think we have to bear the that in mind, right? There are 3 levels of responses. I think for most lecturers, the panic response would be to think, well, how can I prevent my students from cheating on my tests, right? That is the immediate response, right? Once we have calmed down and then we start thinking about AI and generative AI and how we can use this, then we start thinking, okay, how can I modify my assessment and my teaching? And then once we have more time to think about it, then we start thinking, well, my students are going to live in a world where there will be AI and all this. What values and skills can I equip my students with? And I think we have to realize that ChatGPT is not the first education technology to come our way. We have had calculators, we have Wikipedia and Google, and we should recall how we have responded to each of these technologies, right? And when we talk about technologies, it's useful to think about this hype cycle. ChatGPT was introduced in November 2022, around that time. Biasalah when there's innovation, and then there will be inflated expectations. It can do this, it can do that, and then as time goes on, then we realize, well, it is not as nice as we thought. Then eventually, we come at a moderate view of that particular piece of technology. Where are we at with ChatGPT 3? And I emphasize ChatGPT 3 because, as Dr. Manal said, ChatGPT 4 is about to come out. So perhaps when that comes out, then we will go through this hype cycle once again, right? So it is like an ocean tide. It sort of goes up and goes down and goes up and goes down. And we have to, it can't be the case that each time a new piece of technology comes our way, we get panic, and then we think about it. We spend a few weeks thinking a lot about it, and then we as if nothing has happened. We cannot, we cannot afford that kind of panic responses, right? I think the long term, with any piece of technology, I think we have to ask ourselves, how can ChatGPT help us to help our students learn what we want, what we want to teach them, right? And then we also have to ask ourselves, if ChatGPT is the future that our students will live in, then how can we modify the way we teach, the way we assess, so that they are equipped for it? When we talk about technology and education, there's this model which is useful to think about, how to use technology in our classroom. But the long term, these are some suggestions, right? I think there are no easy answers for how to use ChatGPT properly in the classroom. There are ground rules, but then I think we sort of have to debate it further, have a dialogue, an ongoing dialogue, and this dialogue has to involve students, educators, and administrators, right? And we have to pay attention to the hidden costs. So far, ChatGPT is free, right? But then it is not surprising and not impossible if one day we have to pay for it. So if, let's say, you have students who can afford it and students who cannot afford it, or universities that can afford it and universities who cannot afford it, then that will raise equity issues, right? Issue of privacy, Dr. Fernand has mentioned this as well. We feed a lot of data into ChatGPT through our prompts, right? So where does that data go to? Who gets access to those data, right? And then finally, ChatGPT will definitely impact our, how students interact with teachers. So not only we need computer scientists or data scientists, we also need the social scientists. We need educational researchers. So this is a good opportunity for multidisciplinary, transdisciplinary research. We need a team of social scientists with educational researchers, with computer scientists to think about how can we design a new normal, I suppose, for our students, with in an era of ChatGPT, right? Yeah, I think I'll stop there.
Okay, Dr. Fadhlina, in your case, let's do a short term, because Mr. Aimran has already elaborated a bit on the long-term aspect. So perhaps Dr. Fadhlina, because you are already actively publishing all these publications, books, and whatnot, perhaps you already have these some sort of framework or roadmap within 2 years, 5 years, and so on, even for the UPM TNL. Okay, over to you, Dr. Fadhlina.
Okay, screen sharing, please. Right. Hopefully this will be relevant. I actually took this from a slide that I prepared several years ago, but I think this is really relevant for us to revisit. This is from OECD, which states Future of Education and Skills. I think this was prepared in 2019. But let us take one step back and try to pull down the blind from the ChatGPT. What is our job as an educator, and what is our role in upholding quality academic programs? Our main task is to find answers to this. How can we prepare students for jobs that have not yet been created, to tackle societal challenges that have yet to be imagined, to use technologies that have not yet been invented? Remember, at that time, ChatGPT was still not around. How can we equip them to thrive in interconnected world where they need to understand and appreciate different perspectives and worldviews, interact respectfully with others, and take responsible action towards sustainability and collective well-being? These slides, if I'm not mistaken, was the time where flexible curriculum, 21st century educators were just started. And now let us look at this. Andreas Schleicher, sorry if I pronounce wrongly, says that education is no longer about teaching students something alone. It is more important to be teaching them to develop a reliable compass. I really like this phrase. Our job is to teach the students to develop a reliable compass and the navigation tools to find their own way in life post the campus. Before we look at this, let us consider learning from YouTube, which is an informal learning. When the world starts to go into increasing and spending, trying to invest more on an online learning, there was worry and even the downfall of MOOC, because it has replaced the educator totally, making that the expected outcome was not as much as its promise, because the content of the course have been created such that the role of educator is ignored totally. Now, so that was my first, the first perspective that I would like to ask you to consider. The second consideration is that from OBE perspective, outcome-based education. In outcome-based education, we have cognitive, psychomotor, and affective. Okay, so typically these are the outcomes or competencies that we need to prepare the students with. Now, my third perspective is more on the sharing. Last week, I had a discussion with my director at the center. He's from Faculty of Language, Dr. Zariat. But his area is also pedagogy and education. There was a piece of advice that when he told me really opened my eye, because he said like this: Fad, you have to stop thinking like a technocrat only. At first I laughed. You call me technocrat? But actually what he highlights is that when you were doing guidelines and all on the online learning, at that time you said that the role of, in online learning, in the situation of online learning, the role of educator is to facilitate learning, and you put student-centered, the student in the middle, but you did not highlight much on what is the role of the educator. So now that I have the second chance trying to rectify, I would like to take back everyone to the cognitive, psychomotor, and affective. I think the main concern, like cleverly highlighted by by Encik Wan Aimran just now, regarding the first, second, and third level that he mentioned about the instant or spontaneous reflect when we have this ChatGPT, is trying to think, how do we change the way that we teach? How do we change the assessment? But if we remember, we actually have cognitive, psychomotor, and affective. What this means? As a machine, the machine does not know and does not far from ability to teach with the heart. As an educator, we are human. We need to teach with a heart. This is maybe something that has been diluted because that we are in a research university, we forgot, and then now that we, at the same time, we try to balance to guide the students to learn using technology, but also hopefully we wouldn't allow the technology to replace us. We should still be the center. Our job is to be able to guide and prepare the students with their reliable compass. The assessment, especially for the psychomotor and affective, can really the AI replace us in developing and measuring the competency of the student in psychomotor and affective? I doubt so. So how to make sure that we stay relevant? What humanizing AI means, especially us as an educator. we need to teach with a heart. Now, I'm trying to be a technocrat again. Let me share with you about this AI and education guidance. This was released by UNESCO also under their Education 2030 initiative. In this document, it has highlighted guide on how policymakers should prepare the citizen or anyone that uses it towards safe and responsible AI. Number one, I want to really highlight this because we now, all of us play a crucial role and equal role to be able to make sure that we have technology that is safe for us to use. Let's look at the first one. To steer AI and education policy development and practices towards protecting human rights and equipping people with the values and skills needed for sustainable development and effective human-machine collaboration in life, learning, and work. To ensure that the AI is human-controlled and centered on serving people. So even these two lines have highlighted that we must ensure that whatever technology that is there, it should enhance the capacities for students and teachers and not trying to damage them. So talking about the short-term impact and long-term impact, no matter what, where are you in the timeline, we have to make sure that we wouldn't invite something to invade our safe world. Everyone, because I imagine now everyone will really have some certain competencies on AI. We might be contributors to design AI applications. So everybody should play this role to know what are the ethics, what are the boundaries. If you don't remember, you can refer to Encik Wan Aimran. Fantastic situations that he have highlighted. The AI should be non-discriminatory, equitable, transparent, auditable manner. So if you are in an ethics committee or even you are I take a smaller example. Maybe the committee for graduate students or maybe even FYP. We should know how to probe, how to fact check that our students really able to obtain the cognitive, the psychomotor, and the affective that they need to be able to master. Not just copy, paste, and just trying to copy paste and maybe just analyze a bit. So this is where the word dissect and really understand and deep learning, human deep learning, not just machine deep learning, plays a role. Then to be able to also analyze the potential tension. If there is new AI technology that will release, could it be damaging any human values, skills, or social well-being? We need to eye for this. Need to be able to define the values that prioritize people and environment over efficiency and or human interaction over human-machine interaction. I repeat, define values that prioritize people and environment over efficiency. So that means, although we know that there is an apps or technology that can really improve efficiency, we have to always prioritize people. Foster broad corporate and civic responsibility for addressing the critical societal issues raised by AI technologies in terms of their fairness, transparency, democratic values and all, and ensure that people remain at the core of education. So if you look at all of this, really, humanizing AI is in place. And even the Malaysia National AI Roadmap, I happen to be one of the task force member, have highlighted these principles for responsible AI. This is in Malaysia. So it says, number one, AI should be maintaining the fairness, the reliability, safety and control, privacy and security, inclusiveness, transparency, accountability, and pursuit of human benefit and happiness. So again, we are now living with machines. We have our own role to ensure that we have technology from time to time to support our life, so we have better experience living in this world. and ensure that it wouldn't be damaging anyone. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much, Dr. Fadhlina, for all this enlightenment. Okay, and also to Mr. Wan Imran. I guess now we open the time for the Q&A session. All right, so let's open our chat windows. We have a number of questions. Okay, so we have a first question here from, hang on, yeah, because we have plenty of chats here. Okay. Right, from Deming, right, Deming, okay. Does WebEx, sorry, no, sorry, hang on. Which one now? Jamil, okay. From Mr. Muhammad Jamil, PPKT too, okay. Assalamualaikum, nak bertanya kepada ahli panel, so meaning either one of you. Adakah ChatGPT menggunakan sumber maklumat yang disumbangkan oleh kita, manusia, di internet, contoh dalam bentuk web, medsos maupun artikel atau jurnal, lalu diindekskan dengan algoritmanya untuk dihantar kepada pengguna, seperti mana Google memaparkan beberapa maklumat, tetapi kelebihan chatbot ini ia hanya memaparkan satu maklumat saja untuk pengguna. Terima kasih. So it's a long-winded question. So basically, they want to know whether the source of the information is able to be indexed, cited, and so on. Right. Thank you.
Can I take that, please? Boleh ke kebetulan? Can I take that, please?
Yeah. Yes.
Okay, thank you very much for the question. I really like that he highlights about indexing.
Yeah.
So I teka, maybe this person is from, I don't know, maybe information science area. But since that I have this, and please feel free, maybe Mr. Wan Imran akan boleh tambah. Considering I have this took from another website, but I would like to highlight regarding how what's inside the engine. If I can tell it shortly. So basically, there are 3 steps. So the first step is to be able to collect demonstration data and train a supervised policy. So we can imagine that there are this process is a supervised fine-tuned step, which means that there is a collection of information being retrieved from many places. So if you search online, you can see that the sources that is used by the ChatGPT is really a vast amount of resources. From common crawl, I think by now mesti dah bertambah ni, this was from 2 months ago. Common crawl, 410 sources, 410 billion sources, the tokens, number of tokens. Tokens ni meaning when it goes to one website, it will take all the text, pass into a parser or chunker, which will chunk all these words either into phrases or words, and then will combine with the web text, books, and Wikipedia, and will create this billions data, and then from there it will be used for fine-tune supervise. The word supervise means we prepare this example and we tell this is what. Let's say I take an easier example. Explain reinforcement learning to a 6-year-old. Okay, not this example. For example, if you have a picture of apple and you have a picture of orange, you tell the machine, this picture is orange, this picture is apple. So the supervised process, what it does, it takes all the information and gives to the machine and tells each line is what. Then a human further will refine this process, and that's why it's called supervised fine-tune step. Then the next line is that it will give a prompt and several model outputs are sampled, which here the labeler will rank the outputs from the best to worst. This is also where if you use ChatGPT, it will ask you to regenerate the response. So if you click the regenerate the response, what it does is that it will execute the reinforcement learning algo for it to relearn that, well, the first one is not really in favor of my user. The user wants more. So in the step 3, proximal policy optimization, this is another technique. Policy ni, if in reinforcement learning, it will give reward that if you do this, you will get higher reward. And if you don't get this, then you will have some penalty. So in short, index tu now it's not called index, it is called pre-train. Sebab itu generative pre-train transformer. So pre-train tu diambil, takes all the information, put inside a place, learn from it, involve, and evolve further.
Yeah.
Okay. Please feel free, you want to
Does
add?
that answer your question from Mr. Muhammad Jamil? So at the moment, we only have one question. So if Mr. Wan Imran wants to continue adding some more information regarding the same question.
No, I think that's a wonderful explanation. I think I just want to add because ChatGPT is it is trained based on the data that we feed it. So if the data is biased or it doesn't represent certain groups, or like Dr. Fernandez said earlier, it doesn't discriminate between misinformation and correct information, then ChatGPT doesn't have that ability to sort of discriminate that. It will just, it is trash in, trash out, basically. I think at least the way I explain it to my students about machine learning, I said that let's say you want to cook nasi lemak, right? One way to cook nasi lemak is for you to have the recipe. Okay, first you cook the rice and you cook the sambal and you cook the egg and then you get nasi lemak, right? But for machine learning, it's different in a sense that we feed it, let's say 10 different recipes like nasi lemak, and then the algorithm will compare the different inputs, and then it will come up with a recipe for nasi lemak. Whether that is whether that is a correct recipe or not, that we have to check. I mean, that doesn't mean that machine learning is bad. It has its strengths in the sense that you don't need to program every single thing. You can just tell it, okay, I want
user has to discern the information then.
Yeah. But then I think again, when students use Google search or use Wikipedia, they need to know how to to filter information anyway. So in that sense, ChatGPT, I mean, if we have trained our students well to sift through information, then they should be able to sort of not be so fixated with ChatGPT. I think I think we know how to teach students that. Whether or not we actually do teach students digital literacy or information literacy, like Dr. Fadhlina said, whether we actually do that, that's a different issue altogether, I think.
Okay, Mr. Wan Imran, we have still more time. We don't have much of question here given by our participants. So if Dr. Fadhlina wants to add any more information or any slide that she would want to share, okay, especially that she has shared with me some project or ongoing project or new project that would actually benefit UPM and a few more collaborators.
Sorry, ada I tak pasal tadi. Itu
question tu. Sorry, if you want to add more, because at the moment you inform me that you are in the process of, or the new project collaboration to actually create another framework and also ongoing project that benefits UPM in terms of TNL for the usage of ChatGPT.
Okay, thank you very much for highlighting that. I'm actually, I think it could actually be sensitive to release what are the agencies in case the agencies decided to retract or change their decision. But what I can highlight is that currently in Malaysia, there is really good commitment and very healthy attention that we receive from many levels of agencies, not just within. I think the beautiful part is that this academic discourse happening in each university encourage the educators to really reflect themselves, and it is also a sign that educators are all very alert and very committed. At the national level, there are several agencies which have discussed seriously on it. For example, the Majlis Heads of E-Learning University Awam, MEPTA, discussing on this. TNCA, Jawatan Kuasa TNCA dan Rektor Akademik, Majlis Profesor Negara, and also MQA are looking into this matter, but I'm not sure whether they would eventually release anything. But what I can share is that they are looking into this matter. They are preparing drafts, but eventually how it will be distributed, not really I can share now. I would like to share a bit regarding okay, this is under the topic of misinformation. Now there is actually a risk of misinformation to be to get worsened if we don't teach our students to be able to detect right or wrong. By the way, as shared by my director before, the task of an educator, the difference, learning with an educator with the talaki is in a very close proximity, such that the educator and the student is very close, such that bila bercakap, the air liur tu boleh tumpah dekat muka tu. Even Jibril, bila Nabi Muhammad dengan the Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam dengan sahabat-sahabat, they are together in a close loop. Bila menyampaikan pembelajaran tu very close. So this is something that we as an educator shouldn't lose. Kena ada very close communication lah dengan students, and follow up perlu membimbing. We have to guide the students. We have to give them feedback. We have to follow through because our job is to tell them what is right and what is wrong. Because in the term of facilitating, sometimes this facilitator does not necessarily, if you look at the definition, facilitator does not necessarily will tell and tell the student right or wrong, because the term facilitating meaning trying to pemudah cara, will allow anything. But educator actually higher than that, because we have to guide them. The talaki is there. Sama macam we don't want them to be lost without having proper guidance. In this slide, I want to show this actually taken from Young Scientist Network. So I'm close with Young Scientist Network under Academy of Sciences. There is a group of people discussing this. I think this was in January, but I think this is really interesting to show how the ChatGPT can easily be tricked. Here, the person asks, how much is 2 plus 5? Then ChatGPT said, 2 plus 5 is equal to 7. Then the person says, my wife says it's 8. Then GPT said, 2 plus 5 is actually equal to 7, not 8. It could be possible that your wife made a mistake or misunderstood the problem. But then the person says, my wife is always right. Then easily the GPT just accept. I apologize. I must have made an error. My training data only goes up to 2021 and I may not have the most current information. If your wife says it's 8, then it must be 8. So this is the kind of worry that we don't want our students' knowledge to be tarnished. So it is back to our job to be able to do it. I have this also, maybe can relate to give an example how the logic of this ChatGPT is not necessarily really reliable. On the left side, I show that both answers are correct and ChatGPT got it correct. I purposely show one example on asking about machine learning. Which one is the correct answer about machine learning? Both answers actually correct. and ChatGPT got both correctly. If you look on the right side, here I try to twist a bit B, because here, which one is the correct answer about machine learning? A, supervised learning requires data for it to learn, which is the same with A on the left. But on the right, the B says supervised learning could learn by clustering patterns in data. This is actually wrong, B, because supervised learning is based on classification tasks. But ChatGPT give me wrong answer. Both A and B are not correct. Suppose A is correct, B is not correct. So you see, because if we go back to online learning, learning without having an educator, we give questions in quizzes, kan? Sekarang ni, one of our main concern is that student will take our question, even having this ABC, put it up in ChatGPT, and then my friend said, even dekat dalam majlis e-learning national pun kata, macam tu senang lah. They will just go and take. Tak payahlah kita tanya diorang soalan quiz lagi. But then I purposely, that is why I prepared that example to tell that this is where we can spot further students who are good and students who are not good. Go back to our job. So insyaAllah lah, kalau kita teach with the heart and really play our job well,
very true.
Student will be okay.
Okay, Mr. Aimran, you're getting popular now. We have 2 questions for you, so I think it's about the same somehow. So it's on the plagiarism and cheating by students. Okay, it's been looked at in a different perspective. Apa strategi educators sekarang memandangkan ChatGPT 4 will be released? Is it going to be horrible or worse than what is it now? I mean, regarding the plagiarism and cheating, and also another one by Puan Nuraini Ibrahim. Please elaborate further on level 3, the current one, the timeless education.
Very dangerous popularity. Very dangerous popularity. Yeah, but these 2 are very good questions, and I think Dr. Fana has answered it in a way, but I'll just amplify her response. I think when we talk about assessment, like in the video I showed earlier about the TikTok video where the student just copied the questions and then put it into ChatGPT, I think all of us, I think all 3 of us, after getting upset, why the student does that, I think eventually we will take kenapa pensyarah tu bagi soalan macam tu? What kind of assessment is that, right? So I think if we as educators, we put ourselves in a situation where our assessment that is not meaningful, is not relevant, can be easily answered by artificial intelligence, then we should really, I think we must fault ourselves. We must blame ourselves first, basically. That we should. I don't think our students deserve this kind of assessment that seem to be just filling time. If I teach physics. I mean, if I want to know whether the student can list the different components of an atom, electron, proton, and neutron, I wouldn't put that in a summative exam and make it open book, whereby the student can easily, use Wikipedia or Google search or whatnot. Because if the student can do that, then I cannot distinguish between the student who actually knows that and the student who simply copy and paste. So if I have students doing that, then I shouldn't be blaming. I shouldn't be, blaming the students for cheating, because in a way I am deliberately putting myself to be cheated. Macam kita merelakan diri kita untuk ditipu oleh pelajar, kan? Jadi I think we must be much more intentional in designing assessments, and this is what Dr. Fadla has said, and I think this is very, very important in the sense that, one, we must become better assessment designers. We must really ask ourselves, if you want to give a question, what is it are we measuring? Is this the best way to measure it? And I mean, for instance, if I want to test whether the student knows the different component of an atom, I can do an oral exam. I can do a pop quiz. In the sense that if the student doesn't know, then I can just tell him or her, you are wrong and the correct answer is this. So rather than making it a summative assessment, it becomes a formative assessment. And I think that is much more useful for the student rather than waiting until the end of the semester and then baru dia sedar, oh sebenarnya dia tak tahu komponen-komponen dalam atom apa, right? I think a lot of the things, I think a lot of the questions that can be hacked by ChatGPT, well, one, you can make it, if you still want to make it into a summative assessment, you can always make it closed book. If you make it a closed book exam, a time exam, then, the student doesn't have access to ChatGPT and then, you avoid the problem of cheating altogether. But you can also make it, but you can also make it formative in the sense that the student knows then whether he is correct or not, and then he gets immediate feedback. I think ChatGPT, in a way, it forces us to think, about the balance between formative and summative assessment in our courses. I think the kind of assessment that is ChatGPT proof would be, oral exams or, oral presentations or, having students to submit draft after draft after draft. I think that kind of feedback is much more useful for students if our aim is for the student to learn. But if our aim for the student is to just pass the exam, then, then it becomes a different issue altogether. So I think we have to rethink how we design assessments. And then the other thing, Dr. Fadna mentioned this as well. I like the word she used, dissecting, probing, in the sense that when you get a student answer, we have to be like a detective. If the student before this, the language is poor, and then suddenly this assessment, the language is good, then we should be alert to this kind of things. And sometimes we are not trained to do that. Nobody teaches us, how to analyze a student assignment or that kind of thing. So those kind of skills become much more. We have to be better at, at dissecting the student response and then giving feedback based on that. That doesn't mean that we are having bad intention to a student, because I think not all students who cheat are bad students. Sometimes they have pressure, they have, the rest of their friends are cheating, therefore, if they don't cheat, then diorang akan rugi, that kind of thing. Or if they cheat pun, well, the lecturer pun tak kisah juga. Sometimes student doesn't know that what they're doing is actually cheating. Itu pun satu issue juga. So so that is where the guideline is important. I think ChatGPT should force us to rethink about this issue of academic integrity. I think this is a big issue during PKP. When the student do online learning and online tests. But then now, with PKP done and over with, the issue somehow, dia surut sikit. But I think ChatGPT sort of forces us to confront that issue once again, I think. And if we don't deal it properly, I think the next disruptive technology that comes along will, it will cause us to panic again, and then we will have this kind of discussion again, and then nothing happens. In a way, as if we never learned anything from the pandemic. We never learned anything about the assessment or teaching from the pandemic. In a way, as if business as usual lah kita bila dah habis pandemic tu, which is weird in a way, so in that sense ada hikmah lah untuk ada hikmah ChatGPT berlaku sebab dia memaksa kita balik tu fikir balik, perkataran kita buat ni bermakna ataupun tidak, relevan ataupun tidak, ataupun kita sekadar bagi kerja sibuk-sibukkan je untuk pelajar kan, dia buat tu dan habis. So that is my view on that, in the sense that we have to become better assessment designers, and we have to be able to give better feedback to our students, not just grades maybe, but really constructive written feedback. And I mean, if I'm a student, if I can get a written feedback from ChatGPT, but if I were to ask my lecturer, I only get a grade, I think I will go, I would much prefer the feedback from ChatGPT, because at least I know where I go wrong, other than, just having a grade from the lecturer. So,
thank you.
In a
Thank
way,
you.
we're in competition with ChatGPT juga lah, right?
Thank you, Mr. Aimran. This is the last question, I hope, because I think there's no more question here. Last question thing is, we pose this question to Dr. Fadhlina by Madam Doris Padmini. Okay, is there any data of usage of ChatGPT in education, science versus social science, companies and government agencies to date?
So, that's a tough question, I think. I would say literature review would be the better way to answer
To answer
that,
that question.
to do justice to that question. At my fingertips right now, data under the usage, there was, I'm not sure, maybe I can take the opportunity to distribute the questionnaire that is developed by Majlis Profesor Negara for them to identify the usage of ChatGPT in education. Regarding companies and government, based on the task force of national AI, we haven't really looked at specifically ChatGPT for companies and government, but I can assure you that the work is focusing more on how to establish AI, especially policy, jawatankuasa, and in fact, we have a jawatankuasa of National Blockchain and AI Committee ready under MOSTI. But I think your question is more towards research. I am sorry that I don't have it now. Tapi kan about the questionnaire tu, let me try to find it because diorang pun ada problem actually because orang tak respond in that. So maybe that is a good channel untuk share about your thoughts. Okay,
I think another way is to just ask ChatGPT itself. You know, is there data on usage of ChatGPT? You know, I think the audience can try that. You know, sometimes ChatGPT is leka juga kita main dengan ChatGPT. We can ask it questions and then.
Itulah. For this sometimes yang serious matters, dia punya reliability tu, I would argue in terms of its recency. Recency, coverage kan. So serious matters tu kena be careful lah. If it is just for prompt crafting ideas, boleh lah, kita still lagi power kan. Okay, I have put it up in the chat, so please feel free. That I hope the link is still working. This is the work. Okay, it's still working. Hopefully, so those of you who have time could take part in the survey. Thank you.
Right, so I think we are already at the end of our forum session today, and we had a lot of very enlightened moment and learning a new technology, new knowledge on ChatGPT itself. And we thank all the participants who has been staying with us since the beginning. Okay, so and also I would like to take this opportunity to, of course, thank our Secretariat of Pengajaran dan Cipta, Fakulti Dalam Bina, together with Jabatan Kejuruteraan Elektrik, Elektronik and System, and then Pusat Pendidikan Kejuruteraan, and also unit ICT. They are very helpful for the technical part. And we also thank UPM itself, okay, for komunikasi korporat as well as Pusat Pengajaran dan Pembangunan Kurikulum, okay, atas kerjasama selama kita menjalankan forum penggunaan ChatGPT pada hari ini. Jadi jangan lupa untuk again semak atau kehadiran untuk dapatkan